What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Jack Ramsay's Danny Marang, no Brandon Sprague, joined by Casey Holdahl, Trailblazers beat reporter on a special night. We'll let folks kind of trickle in here because I'm sure people are reacting to the news live. But the news of the night, Casey, freedom.
Yeah, I mean it's great news. Yes, if you were constrained by your cable or satellite provider only to watch Blazer games, I guess you do have some freedom at this point.
Yeah, this has been something that's been in the works for quite some time.
Yeah.
If you want to read, the Blazers are putting out a press release. I believe Casey just put out his. I just put out my article. It's free and unlocked on Jack Ramsay's right now that outlines some of the technical stuff. In a couple days, I will have a longer drawn out, like how did we get here, write up. But tonight is about the good news.
Yeah.
For anybody who may have missed it, the Portland Trailblazers and Sinclair Broadcast Group, along with KATU, have agreed to a multi-year deal to broadcast all non-exclusive games. What does that mean exactly? It means that all of the non-exclusive national TV games, which the Blazers have one national TV game this year. You have the in-season tournament games, and I'm not 100% certain on the exclusivity, so I am operating under the auspices that 5 games will not be available on KATU. Is that how you understand it, Casey?
I kind of forgot about the tournament games,
Yep.
and I don't know if every tournament game is exclusive nationally. I mean,
That's the
that'd
thing.
be a lot of games.
Yes,
so...
and I think that the ones that are on TNT or ESPN, those are exclusive. I don't believe the NBA TV ones are. There's some minutia I need to fine print on.
Well, and that's the game. That's the once they get to Vegas too, right? That's not the actual because the ones that are just already on the schedule, those are not national TV.
Yeah, correct. Some of them are. Some of them are, but I think those are like the marquee top of the.
Yeah, I don't think I'm
for Portland. Yes,
Trailblazers
yes.
not league wide, just in terms of your Portland Trailblazers.
Yes,
I don't think any of ours are national, but
I don't
pick
think
them up.
so.
Who's to say?
Because the way that the in-season tournament works is there is a structure to the bracket. There's some higher ranked teams based on wins and losses last year, and some lower ranked teams in every single pool. So if there's a matchup of higher seeded teams in those pool brackets, those are the ones that get picked up nationally. This is not the only news. BlazerVision, Casey, is come full circle from the 1990s and is live and in front of us here.
Absolutely, yeah. A new streaming option from the team, direct to consumer. I think $120 for the season, $19.99 per month. And if you're a season ticket holder or a half season ticket holder, you get it for free, which is pretty great. Yep. Like, when I was kind of doing my thing, I was like, hey, if you were kind of on the fence about buying season tickets, like, you might as well just buy it, because if you're going to get the stream, you've already, I mean, basically that's $120 right there that you're getting the stream for free. So, that's been something too that people have wanted for a while now, and maybe even more than like a over the air or cable option. Like, I would say over the last 5 years, you hear more from fans, or at least I've heard more from fans, about the fact that there wasn't a regular, consistent streaming option. I mean, there, you could do I think whatever the DirecTV stream. There's been some other products here and there, but there hasn't been something directly from the team that's been kind of dependable and reliable for the majority of your games until now. And, I think that one of the easy ways to look at it too, Dan, as I'm sure you've probably considered as well, is, this is kind of the situation that both the Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns are in, which is that, they were both under RSNs as well. The RSN model just does not really work anymore, and probably will not be around for a whole lot longer, if it's still around, even in an actual way. And so this really kind of gives fans, particularly in the local markets, an opportunity to see their games in a much easier fashion than they've had, ever. I mean, the team is saying that this will expand their distribution by at least 4x, and there's still more. Different stations, as I understand, that are coming online. So either way, like, for me, the top line is, if you live in Oregon or Southwest Washington, for the most part, and you have an antenna, you can watch Blazer games.
Yeah, and so
going forward.
Now, I'm going to get into the weeds on this for just a split second.
Please do. Because a lot of this stuff, too, is like, we're all kind of learning about it.
Yeah.
A lot of us have got kind of a download on it. But, for people that have been paying attention for a long time, there's probably some nuance that you probably understand, Dan, that maybe some other people don't. So
there are certain inhibitions that come along with going over the air. And that is not unique to just Portland doing anything. It is topography. So if you live in certain parts of the state or in Washington, even within those ranges, if you do not have a strong enough signal, you will need to go a different route as opposed to over the air. One of those locations, I'll just say it, is Bend. Bend is a complete pain to get over the air signals into. And so if you're located in Bend, or a city like that, you're going to want to look at the streaming option.
Yeah.
If that's the route you want to pursue. The Blazers are working with KATU and Sinclair and their other family of affiliates within the state and within the region to grow the signal and grow the strength as of now. And they have already said behind the scenes that they will continue to grow that. I highlight that in the article.
Yeah, that was one of the things they really stressed to me as well, is that,
they're not done.
This is a good start. Exactly. Yep. And it'll cover a lot of people, but they're still working towards getting it completely covered. And this will not be the last announcement. There will be more stations that are coming online as we go forward. And hopefully, I don't know exactly what that timeline is, but, we got a little bit of time before the season starts. And then, there's a little bit of time after that too. So you're exactly right, Dan. Like some of it is logistics. And I was kind of having this conversation with someone the other day about like the coast, it's like you got a mountain range and then the coast, and then there's nothing for a couple thousand miles.
Yeah.
So like
signals die.
Exactly. Like, and I think a lot of times, like you don't really kind of think about the actual logistics of like, what does it take to shoot a signal up and then hit it somewhere and then knock it back down to somewhere else.
Here's something really funny. It's actually beneficial for the Oregon coast that they have crappy weather, because what ends up happening is when you have clear weather, the signal bounces into space. When you've got cloud cover, that your signal will actually refract down. It's as funny as that is. On a clear day, I can get my radio show to probably 30 minutes north of Ridgefield, which is pretty good coverage when you think about how big of an area that is. On a cloudy day, I can get it all the way to Tacoma.
Wow.
So to give you an idea of how much stuff can change, it's interesting. This is obviously something, Casey, that Dwayne Hickens, president of business operations for the Trailblazers, has had front and center as far as a deliverable to fans. And without spoiling the article that I have up, Dwayne has told me for a long time that he has wanted to do right by fans. And this is something that organizationally that they know that things have been in a weird spot. And it's not something that they were just, shoving to the side. You've heard me say this, and privately and publicly. The Blazers went with Root, and Root was the best deal that was on the table at the time. Period, point blank. That's the
and
reality.
To my point about RSN, there's going into that deal, there just weren't that many options.
No, it was that and NBC
like,
Sports.
There's only so many places that can put a game on television, and so. And you're right, though, too, that, that's kind of something that I really stressed, too, in my coverage of it, is that, like, this is something that the organization has known has been an issue for a while and has really, really been bothersome for the organization. Yep. Like, it's very detrimental to the business to not have fans being able to see your games. Like, there's no two ways around it. And there's no amount of money that the team gets through those rights fees that would come close to making up for fewer people getting to watch games. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. And so, as time has gone on, there's been fewer and fewer options, which, almost kind of oddly enough frees the team up to pursue some of these other options now. So like, 5 years ago, I don't believe the NBA would allow you to put out your own stream for games. Like 5 years ago, I don't know that it'd allow you to have your games over the air. Like I think you could probably have a piece of it, but part of BRI, basketball related income, is the money that local broadcasts take in as well. And so it's like, No, there are actually rules that the NBA has about like, hey, you can't turn down things necessarily if it means more money is coming into the league. So, now that the RSNs have kind of, or at least the entire broadcast industry has changed quite a bit, it's made some of these things available that previously were not available to teams. And that's why teams that have kind of come up against it recently, teams like Phoenix, teams like Utah, they've been able to kind of fast track things, because before it was like, no, you still got to find another option. And now it's like, look, there aren't any other options. Like, we have to take this on ourselves. And if not, our games aren't going to be accessible to anybody. And luckily enough, the NBA has been forward thinking about that recently. And now, we're to the point now where I think you're going to see more and more teams going this route.
Yeah, and I'll say it bluntly. The Portland Trail Blazers tried multiple times over the last 8 years to try to go direct to consumers. That 100%. I will say that, sourced through the gills. And the NBA told them no. So this is what I've tried to tell fans for the last few years, is that this is not just the organization saying, here's a double barrel to you, we're going to take the money and run, we don't like you. Even for those of you who think the worst of Trailblazers ownership right now, the most selfish, single-minded point of view would inform you that getting this product to the most people possible would be better for their bottom line. So just think about that when you're kind of working through this. And if you need me to drive this home more, I'm saying the deal with Root was better and it cost me a job. Okay? So stop with the tinfoil hat stuff about chasing dreams and money. It's not there.
But you know
guys.
what, too, man? It's like, that's done. This is. I mean, like, there's no two ways about it. Like, this is a good deal.
This is a home run deal.
I mean,
yes.
it absolutely is. Like, and I mean, that was kind of one of the things that I talked to Dwayne about too, is that, like, we were tired of getting caught in this situation where we're stuck in between, the place that owns the rights and then how it's getting onto TV. Like, because there's only so much that the team can do and stipulate when they're going into those agreements about kind of like what the distribution is going to be. And so, I think we saw it both with NBC Sports Northwest and with Root, that like, and I mean, it happens all the time too. You have these satellite providers that are like, I feel like every 3 years, it's like, you're going to lose Jeopardy if you don't call your provider and ask for Channel 2. So, or whatever it would be. So like, there's so many competing interests in that space that a lot of times teams get caught in the middle. And so, yes, the team was kind of up against it sometimes. Like, I don't necessarily think that we maybe got the fairest shake in terms of like assumptions about what the priorities were for the team. But again, who cares now? Because like, now you have an over-the-air option and you have a stream option. If you're in Seattle, Pasco, Medford, where else are they at?
I've got the direct.
There's quite a few different places that they're going to be available on day one.
Direct source, which means they have, it goes out for X amount of miles. It's the same thing. Like, if you've got KATU in Portland, the immediate coverage, I believe, is something like 50 miles. As far as which is a huge area. The actual marketplace that the NBA assigns and the Portland Trailblazers buy is 150 miles. So it covers a ton. Let me pull up. I've got it in my notes right here. The places that already are confirmed. Where did it go? In all of this. Okay. Seattle on KUNS, Medford on KTVL, Eugene on KVAL, KCBY, and KPIC, and Yakima, Pasco on KEPR and KIMA. So those are your immediate boosters for the signal.
And one thing that's really important to remember too, and to get out there, is that the team is going to be very forward about where you're going to find these things at.
Yes, you can go to trailblazers.com/watch. And
there's going to be, it's going to take a couple games probably for everyone to figure out okay, it's going to be here, it's going to be there. So that is something you're definitely going to want to kind of keep on top of. But the team has really stated emphatically we are going to make sure everyone each one of these individual markets where it's going to be on a different station, know exactly where it's going to be at. Because that's also been something too that, like, even with the Root deal last year, it's like sometimes it was on
Root
one
Sports
station
Plus.
and sometimes it's on a different station. Like, and some of that is just, that's just the nature of broadcast and only having X number of channels for X amount of content. But you're going to want to stay on top. You're going to want to at least pay attention to kind of what the team is saying in terms of at least initially, until kind of everyone realized, like, okay, this game is going to be here, this game's going to be there. But either way, they're going to be over the air. And if you get the stream option, obviously, you always know where it's going to be. And that's going to be available, if you have any kind of web browser, you'll be able to watch it there. iPhone, Android, PlayStation.
And importantly,
Xbox,
directly through the NBA app.
And through the NBA app, exactly.
Yes.
So if you can have the NBA app, if you can stream through the NBA app, you can stream Blazer games through that, which again is something that I think, that with more people cutting the cord. I mean, like I still have cable, so I don't have an antenna actually, I probably have an antenna around here somewhere, but I don't necessarily watch television through an antenna. I actually do at my place on the coast, so that actually makes it a little easier. But I'm accustomed to getting KATU or Channel 2 through my cable provider. But, if you don't want to do that, which
You
a lot
don't
of
have
people don't
to.
these days, you don't have to. And if you're someone that's like, I stream, like, I don't even have a television.
If you're
I
YouTube
watch everything
TV,
on my iPad,
it's there for
on
you.
my laptop, on my phone. That's an option for you now, which again, like that was not the case. And even when we had stream options, I believe that sometimes it's like, well, you can watch it on this device, but not on that device.
Yeah.
It sounds like that those kind of stipulations about what you can and can't stream on are much more reduced this time around than the last time around. So if you're someone that really wants to just kind of dive right into getting your content through stream, you have that option now.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't say with BlazerVision, there are some things that are going to come along with that. This is access to game replays. There will be running classic games on there. Content that is holistic to the Trailblazers, like The Trail, the documentary series, is going to live there. And the other interesting thing is that when you have a streaming service, you are not limited on inventory, which means they can do anything they want in-house. They can throw a weekly show on there. If they wanted to throw extended pre or post coverage on there, they could. If they wanted to put an alternate broadcast on there, they could. There's a million different things that can be done with that product. The other thing here is that with it being built in directly into the NBA app, if you're thinking about a forward-thinking league, guess what's going to end up happening, guys? All of the teams are going to be in the
More and more
NBA
teams,
app.
yep.
And what ends up happening when all of the teams are in one particular place? Do you think maybe an Amazon might come through and all of a sudden it's integrated into Amazon? Or it becomes a part of YouTube and everything's integrated into YouTube? One of the mega companies is going to come in, and this is the first step into getting everything in-house for the NBA. The Blazers won't be the only team that is doing this. If you look at it, if you had done this a couple years ago, it would have been some smaller company or some standalone company that would help the Blazers stand up their own direct-to-consumer service.
Which, by the way, we did that.
Yes.
Like 12 years ago. God, I can't. I mean, I worked for the team. And
I know.
I think based out of Israel, I think, or something like that. And it was for fans that were in the service area but couldn't get Comcast for whatever reason because basically they wouldn't run the cable to you.
The line, yeah.
And
it's a very specific service.
Yeah, the product wasn't probably ready for prime time just yet. Like the bandwidth was difficult. The geocaching issues were difficult. And that's what it would have been, is that you basically, you're like going with a company that they can provide the platform, but doesn't really have a whole lot of other experience or other infrastructure in order to make those things be seamless, which is really what it needs to be too. Like if you're asking someone to pay for something and it's a live event and you're going at a particular time to see it and then it doesn't work like that, it can't happen. So like, you have to get the technology to a point where it's stable, and that's where it is now, obviously. I mean, I think we've seen more and more now that streaming services are more than well enough equipped to provide the bandwidth that you need in order to stream things anywhere these days. So it might not have been ready before. We tried it before. It is ready now, and I think it's going to be a really useful product for our fans and something that I think people are really going to enjoy. And you're exactly right, Dan. Like there's no limit to the amount of content that they can put on that stream. So like, I think that opens up a lot of interesting opportunities for the team to kind of do some different things.
Because you're not limited by shoulder programming, and as we talk about shoulder programming, I don't want to skip over K2's support in this, and that's a big part of this, and something that again the Blazers front office has pushed to my forefront over and over again over the past few years, is that they want going to a different network, that there was less shoulder programming going forward. That if you look at the Phoenix Suns, if you look at the Utah Jazz, you look at the New Orleans Pelicans, you look at these teams that are getting away from RSNs, that are starting up their own broadcasts. Number one, they're coming to the Trailblazers to figure out how to broadcast things. And I want to answer a couple questions everybody's asking about staff. Whether it's Casey, it's Brooke, it's Lamar, it's Kevin, it's Neil. Everyone is a Trailblazers employee, guys. They are not a part of Root. They were not a part of NBC. Like I was an NBC employee. For being factual, I was a contractor for NBC. Casey is a Trailblazers employee. Brooke is a Trailblazers employee. Lamar, Kevin, those guys are all Trailblazers employees. Now, behind the scenes, you've got contractors and such that work for Blazers Broadcasting, the greater holistic part of this. And talent either has contracts with Blazer Broadcasting or with the Trailblazers. That's for them to go into. But all of that stuff is owned by the Trailblazers and or Blazers Broadcasting. So nobody is going anywhere with a change in providers. If somebody leaves, it's of their own accord or corporate or interior shuffling. But as of right now, Lamar, Kevin, Brooke, Neil, Tom, Michael. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anybody else that's been a part of the consistent broadcast.
I think that's. I mean, I don't count. Yeah, I jump on the broadcast every now and then.
And Travis on the radio side. Everybody there is still, nobody's going anywhere, guys.
Yeah, no change. And that's one of the reasons why this is important for the team too, is because we've always been very adamant that like we want to control our broadcast.
Yes.
And once you go to different products, like sometimes they're like, no, well, we control the broadcast. Now, granted, that's more of an RSN thing, and again, RSN's not really existing in that fashion anymore. But that is something that other teams would have to deal with. Is like their broadcasters wouldn't necessarily be employees of the team. The broadcast wasn't done in house. Ours is, and so I think it also allows us to probably be a little bit quicker in picking this up than maybe some other places would be. Yes. Because again, we've been broadcasting our own games the entire time for the most part.
It's just you guys at OKC currently, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
So those are the only two in-house. But I also know that there are multiple teams that are talking to the Trailblazers of figuring out how to spin this stuff up.
Well, and if it's gonna go this direction and it's gonna be over the air and it's gonna be streamed, like why
would you pay the money to do this? Because
exactly.
You're hemorrhaging money at that point. Yes, the investment up front is expensive, but it's significantly more expensive to pay for it every year.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I've seen those contractor rates. They're not cheap. I've seen a few people ask about broadcast quality. Most places, even on the national level, I believe there's only 2 NBA trucks that are 4K capable. If I remember correctly. I believe there's only 2. I could be wrong on that.
I do not know.
I'll need to double check my notes, but 4K is not something that is everywhere yet, guys. So chill on that. But the 720 games, those are gone. Those are gone. You will be getting 1080 higher quality broadcasts going forward. That is going to happen. And again, with a partnership of K2, I can't believe I've gotten this far and I haven't mentioned it yet. The stand-up of the Rip City Television Network.
Yes.
That is also a part of this, which will consist of shoulder programming, and that will be smaller to start, but is something that K2 is looking to build upon. And having talked to, again, if you go to the Jack Ramsay's Patreon, I have a bit of an interview with Dean Dittmer, the new vice president and general manager over at K2. They will have, they are genuinely excited about this partnership. I've already seen a few people like, K2. Look, I'll say this, and it may give me a little bit of trouble. 6 months ago, if you would have handicapped this race, I would have had K2 probably 3rd or 4th. I would have had other stations higher. But they came to the fore, and they are interested in doing it. And I'm thrilled to see what they do, because when you have motivated partners that, like, sports for those that aren't in the business or understand how broadcasting works or where things are going, live sports is the biggest cash cow in broadcasting, and it's not particularly close.
Yeah, live events are the only things that really kind of drive viewership these days.
So this is something like, again, I always like to take a look at it from like, what's the most selfish possible outcome? Because when you're talking about selfish and self-interested, like that's when push comes to shove, like that's where people will go. And the self-interest, the self-protected version of K2 wants to do shoulder programming. They want to have more content. They want to have more live focused events because that's selfishly where the money is. And it helps. What's good for the goose is good for the gander here. Yeah. And that's the thing where I think this is one of those like really, really fun things that I think K2 is going to be a very invested partner in kind of how they go about things.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention too, Dan, is just kind of, at least in terms of the timing of this, is like just how important it is for a team that's where the Blazers are at right now to have their broadcast be accessible. You know, like we're trying to build towards something, you know, obviously a lot of turnover last year. And, you know, you're going through the growing pains that you're invariably going to go through when you're rebuilding. And it's just hard to get people excited about that rebuild process or kind of the future going forward if no one can watch the games. You know?
If you get hit a week before the season with a Comcast
exactly.
change,
and, you know, like if you're like, hey, we're a Western Conference Finals team, then it's like, you know, maybe you're going to extend yourself a little bit more to figure that out than you would if you're like, hey, I know that wins are probably going to be a little sparse this year. Like, maybe I can just read about it or something. So, like, I really think to get fans invested in kind of where the team is going right now, it's always important for people to have access to your games, but particularly when you're trying to build something going forward, you know, after kind of a long period of kind of the same personalities on the team, like you have to have a broadcast that is accessible and available to a lot of people. And so to be able to get this done now, when the team is really in kind of the infancy of that rebuild, I think is incredibly important for the team going forward.
It's huge.
It really is.
To kind of highlight that, the Phoenix Suns were coming off a finals run when they made this transition, and their viewership still grew over 100%. In a market that I believe is 7th in the country, depending on what day of the week it is. They're a top 10 market. It's crazy to think about Phoenix being that big, but Phoenix metro area is
Suns have always had great support too.
Yes, so. They're not the Atlanta Hawks. Right. They're up there in attendance, even in their down periods, and it just goes to show that there has been a real shift in marketplace dynamics in viewership and broadcasting, particularly in sports, and it is significantly more about availability than it is about the money that comes in up front. And you know, kudos to Blazers ownership, because here's the thing, folks, there is another year left on that Root deal. If you think that they're getting all of the money from that deal for not broadcasting, that's not happening.
They are not.
So,
and they're probably, I mean, like, I heard the term haircut today too, in terms of kind of what the actual rights fees. So, you know, like, again, just to the point is that, like, your games being able to be seen by the most amount of people is a much better investment than getting kind of that money on the front end, but also resulting in people not being able to watch your games. Like, from the advertising perspective, from the ticket sales perspective, again, from just the idea of like growing your brand. And, you know, the professional sports have already kind of taken a bit of a backseat for the younger generation anyways. So like you gotta get in front of people in order to get them behind you. And, you know, maybe previous broadcast situations weren't as advantageous as this one is going to be. Yeah. So again, it just, from the totality of it, is just that organizationally it's a really important, I mean, it's an incredibly important move. Like, and it's not up there with like drafting well.
It's pretty damn close.
It's pretty important. Like the overall health of your franchise, you have to, you can't lose money hand over fist. And if your fans can't see your games, that's what's going to happen. So like it's a pretty important thing to get done. And again, like it's not on the court, so you don't want to, you don't want to overemphasize it, but it's a rather important part of your franchise's overall health for sure.
I would say this is one of the biggest wins in the modern, in the non-basketball terms, one of the biggest.
Oh yeah,
wins
for sure. I
franchises ever
completely
had.
agree. Absolutely.
For those of us around Casey and I's age, I won't disclose even their age at this point. We grew up with games on TV, but we also, I think, we have a little Mandela effect with just how many games were publicly available. Like, I was talking to somebody about this. And I'm like, how many games do you think that were used to be on the other networks? And they're like, oh, it was almost all of them was on. I'm like, no. The most it ever was 25. The most it ever was 25. And now you're going to get upwards of 75. That's such a drastic shift.
But it also speaks to the idea, though, that when, like those games, when the games used to be on KGW, before the Comcast deal, it's like, it is a Mandela effect, but also like, that just proves the point that it's like, when you make it accessible, people
watch,
interact with it, and they 100%. Have a more positive affinity for it. And when it's like, if you're shelling out, X number of dollars to have a station that you're only getting basically as you want to watch Blazer games, and then the team doesn't play especially well, then you're like, I feel like it's probably kind of hard to feel good about that decision at a certain point in time. Now it's like you don't have to worry about that so much, and I think that's a great way to kind of get back to kind of the way that I think people viewed Trailblazer basketball that I think maybe over the last couple seasons has been lost a little bit. So. Yeah. Again, I'm really happy for the franchise, but I'm really happy for our fans that they're able to interact with this thing now. And, and again, like it was one of the parts for me where it's like, I didn't even feel comfortable, like telling fans anymore, like, no, it's good. Don't worry about it. Because it's like, I've done this so many times.
We've been down this road a couple times.
Something
before.
Ends up happening and then I feel bad about it. And it's like, look, I just don't want to shine you on, And so at a certain point, it was like, look, like, unless like I could really feel good about what this deal is going to be, like, please don't ask me to like get out there out front and talk about it, because I just don't, again, like,
don't feel good about it.
Exactly. We need to do right by our fans. I wouldn't say we've led them astray before, but things just didn't work out the way we had hoped before. This time, whatever it is, it has to be right. And this is right. Like this is going to work. This is going to be accessible. And, in a way that I feel much more comfortable about that now than any time that I've worked with organizations. So, again, it's just a really good thing. I'm really happy for everyone. I'm glad they were able to get it done. I know they kind of kept getting pushed back. And so I'm sure that there was probably some people out there that were like, hey, is this thing going to get done or not? And, again, to my point, like when things don't always go as well as you would like you don't get the benefit of the doubt, and you don't necessarily deserve it. And so, look, I'm really glad to see that we're able to get this thing to market now. And again, it's not even what it is now is not even what it's going to be going forward. It's going to be bigger, but it's better now than it's ever been already. Mm-hmm. So I think that's
the fact. You're not down at the bottom. Like you're out of the well.
Yeah.
Timmy's not at the bottom of the well anymore, and to the point of it taking a little while. There was a couple false starts along the way. Sitting on this for a couple weeks, I was like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be tough." It was one of those things where, yes, I hinted at it on a couple podcasts, like, everybody calm down. I really think you're gonna like this. This is why I thought you guys would all like this. You're gonna have the most access you've ever had. You've got a partner who really, I think, in KATU and Sinclair, who's going to care, and they're going to want to put stuff around it. And the Blazers would not have signed a deal with them if they didn't believe that they were going to put stuff around it. Because that was a big push. It was number one, it was distribution and getting it available to as many people as humanly possible, but also having the ability to build stuff around it and support, like, without throwing the other company under the bus. Just throwing the game up with a pre and post and then getting out of it and going to a Seattle sporting event after it was over is not conducive for Portland fans in the Portland market. This is about the Portland fans in the Portland market. So you will have a product that serves you, the fan. It will be based around that. And the ability to do that directly with BlazerVision is a huge thing for all of the people who want to cut cords. Here you go. Yeah. You have your option available to you. I think this is...
And one of the things about that stream too is that, like, so, not that I would stream illegally, But I had heard that if you did,
Yo
you never got the Blazer broadcast.
No, you always got the road broadcast.
And particularly when you have a good broadcast like we do with Kevin Lamar and Brooke and Michael, that's not great. So even if you were, utilizing one of those kind of other
sailing the high seas, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. At least you didn't get to watch our broadcast, and again, you're missing a heck of a good crew there. So
you're missing one of the best crews in the NBA, hands down. And instead, you maybe got stuck with a broadcast team from Southwest America who I have a blood feud with.
That's true. That's right. Yeah, I didn't even think about your involvement in that, Dan. Yes, exactly.
It's always got to be about me, Casey. Come on now. I got to find a way.
I'm the guy that always makes it about himself, man. So,
I think we've hit everything on the TV deal for now. Am I missing anything? I think I've got everything.
I don't think so.
I mean, there's a ton of detail that I'll flesh out in the article coming up. I don't think people want to hear that stuff necessarily. I think that'll be for the sickos.
Yeah.
But while I got you here, you want to talk training camp and media day?
Yeah, sure. We can chop it up a bit here.
We got here now a week away from media day, which is insane. The summer is over. Everyone, I believe, is back in town now, right? Because I know,
as far as I know, yeah,
a couple guys had come and gone. Donovan had to do some work in DC, and I believe Denny is fully back now. So I know there was a unofficial mini camp a couple weeks back with most of the guys in town, and guys are getting some run in. Taking a look at where this team is at, there's only a couple new additions, but they're big time additions. Casey, what are the things that you're looking kind of to see, not only at media day but going into camp? Because just talking to people in the front office on the basketball side of things, it feels like there's that scene in was it Batman Begins? Joker breaks the pool cue and throws it down and says "sort it out." Feels like there's going to be a couple of those in training camp for some of those back end roster spots.
Yeah, I would imagine there is, and for me, it's it always starts with the new guys. So what does Denny look like? And just the fact too that I was talking to someone in the office about this today. We haven't had a verified starting caliber forward on this team since Nick Batum. So I mean, you're talking a long time. So to have a guy in Abia who you feel very comfortable plugging into that spot, that for me is that's interesting. And I just want to see what the team looks like with a guy at that spot. And then obviously you got Donovan and just the center rotation in general, which how much is he going to factor into that right away? How does Rob Williams look? After getting off to a rough start last year, I mean, DeAndre looked fantastic in the second half of the season. Is he able to carry that over into the start of this season? Shaden, obviously, I mean, I'm one of the biggest Shaden guys out there. So seeing what he's doing, kind of seeing if Ant what he does, and both him and Scoot, and what's the approach to that this year? And I'm assuming they're probably not going to try to play those guys together again. So is Ant going to start? Is Scoot going to start? Is that a competition at camp? I think that, that's something that I think is really interesting. And I just think in general, after last year where, they make the move, really right before training camp starts, and you got to kind of get it together on the fly. Now you've had a little bit of time, and you also, with the moves that you've been able to make subsequent to the Lillard trade, now you're starting to see just the roster get kind of evened out a little bit and put into shape in a way that I think last year was well, this is what we got. Let's throw these kids out there and see what they can do. Now it's well, we have a little more positionality now. We have a little bit of a better idea about kind of where guys are at right now in their careers. Let's put them in situations where we feel like they can be successful and continue to grow without necessarily putting them in situations they're not ready for. So, I think that, I would say this year, I'm probably more interested in camp this year than I've been in the last 4 years, because again, you have a lot of new pieces that are important to the team going forward. You have a lot of guys who you're still kind of trying to figure out what you have. And then I didn't even talk about Tumani, who I'm really excited about, and seeing how he looks in his second season. There's I think it's a pretty intriguing team if you're a Blazer fan. Like, I understand that, like, nationally, we're probably not going to get a whole lot of attention, at least to start.
No.
But I think if you're someone who's invested in this team and seeing them grow going forward, like, there's a lot of really interesting storylines for this team, and a lot of different directions it can go. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun camp. I'm glad they're doing it here in town this time too, rather than going to California, because nothing else allows everyone else to go to it as well. You don't just have to hear my dumb questions. So I think it's going to be a really interesting camp this year. And I think media day as well. Like, there's, again, like we haven't talked to Shaden in a while. We haven't talked to Scoot in a while. We haven't talked to Ant in a while. And, you know, there's kind of a lot of different kind of simmering storylines for a lot of these guys. So, you know, it's going to be a pretty busy couple weeks here. I mean, the season's always busy, but like it just feels to me like there's a lot of important business to kind of get conducted, not so much conducted, but just to look into from a journalistic perspective, that I think is going to make this camp really interesting.
It's perfect. It's a great segue right there. It's like you almost knew I was going to do this. You know, I'm a stickler for the heights and weights in the NBA. It was one of my singular goals to get them remotely accurate. And there's going to be one, and I think that it's going to have a very large update. Denny Abia is currently listed at 6'9", 210 pounds. Casey, do you think Denny Abia weighs anything close to 210 pounds? Because I know how much he weighs because I was just told.
No. As someone who was 210 pounds and is no longer 210 pounds, like, I feel like I have a pretty good ability to gauge that. I'd also say 6'9" feels a little. I hope he's 6'9".
I would say he's 6'9" in shoes.
Okay, yeah, I buy that
because we're all measuring that.
210 feels a little.
He's
I'm guessing
240.
That's not true. What's that?
He's 240.
He's 240.
240.
Dang, yeah.
He said he wants to get his weight updated.
Yeah, well,
he's like, I don't know why he's listed at 210.
Yeah, that seems. Well, because I thought you were going there like he lost weight, and I was like, there's no way he can be lower than that. Like, that's.
I had seen him before a couple times when he'd just come to town. You know, and the few times Washington he'd come to town. I never paid that close attention to him. When we were down in Las Vegas and he was working out with the team, I was blown away by how thick, big
he is thick. Like he's not 210. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah,
he is just a big like Jeremy's he's got the wiry frame, right? Yeah. Denny's not wiry. Denny's thick, and I was like. It's something I think you, me, Sean, Mike, we've all kind of talked about this team needing is somebody who's a bit of a strong guy, not a bit of an enforcer, got a little chip on his shoulder. I'm really interested to see if Denny kind of has that because he's got a nastiness to him.
Yeah,
he plays with an attitude and an edge, and one of the things that I think this team has missed is, and this has been a priority of the front office, they haven't brought in bad dudes. They've brought in higher character guys that are not going to be a problem, and that has been something that's kind of been like there. We all look without bringing up names. You know, guys who have issues in the NBA. This organization just wasn't going to bring those kind of players in. The problem is if you don't bring in somebody who's a little bit of a dick, you get a locker room full of nice guys, and sometimes you can get pushed around. And I started thinking, and I'm like. Ed and Wes are the last two guys who had they will not be trifled with energy to them. Zach tried, and he had that night against Golden State, but he just, look, he's got the fight in him, but I just don't know if I just don't know if he's got the bite behind that. It's hard to be that guy if you're not out on the floor playing 30 plus a night.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless you're James Johnson and everyone is literally afraid of you killing them. There's a sliding scale. There's the scariest dude in the NBA, not named James Johnson, and then all the way over is James Johnson for a guy that's literally nicknamed Bloodsport, and if people are worried about that guy might actually break my skull.
Yeah.
But having a guy like Denny, I'm really interested to see if he can bring a level of nastiness and a bit of grit to this team because I love Ant, but that's not his game. Hell, Dame was tough and hard-nosed, but I wouldn't say he's an enforcer. Look, if you
can't be when you're at that level too. That's someone else has got to take on that role.
Yes, somebody's got to look. Draymond Green takes on that role for Steph Curry. He Look, you try to lay a hard foul on Steph Curry with Draymond Green on the floor, you're going to get knocked out. Like, somebody tries to, Shaden goes up for a big dunk and gets undercut, somebody's got to come in.
Yeah. And it's just about attitude sometimes, too, you know? It's like, it doesn't even have to be physical necessarily.
You don't have to throw a punch, but, like, you have to let guys
yeah,
go.
to your point, it's like, you just have to be someone that, like, look, if you come at me, like, there's going to be a repercussion for it. Like
Steven Adams is the walking repercussion.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, people just don't, again, like, he was on the floor and you go, I'm good.
I mean, and the guy that I always point at, I probably use this example too much, but is Robin Lopez. Because, like, when something would happen, like, Robin Lopez, like, a guy I'd never seen before, like, his eyes just go dead.
The eyes go wide.
Like, and that, you need that in sport. Like, and again, like, no one's ever going to be like, Robin Lopez is probably taking a swing at someone, though he probably has from time to time. But, like, you just have to have guys who, like, when things get sideways, have no compunction with just going sideways with it. And you know, that when it's a physical sport like it is, you know, you have to, you can't get punked. And that, again, that doesn't necessarily mean you got to fight everyone. You don't have to take offense to everything. No. You can't let it necessarily throw you off your game.
But there's a level of attitude that's been missing.
You need an edge. Yeah. You just do. Like, and you know, when you don't have that, it ends up having downstream effects for sure. And particularly when you're a young team too, because a lot of it too is that, like, if you're a 19-year-old, you got to be one heck of a hard ass to be able to do that in the NBA, because
they don't come along very often.
Sniff it out, and they're going to go at you right away, and they're going to make you rethink that approach to things. So, like, when you already have a young team as it is, you need some guys who have been in the league for a couple of years who kind of understand that balance, and you need them to go out and kind of show it to everyone else as well.
Yeah, which a guy like Malcolm was supposed to kind of.
Malcolm Brogdon's a great example of that.
For those that don't know, Malcolm's a giant red ass. Like, you may have not seen it come out on TV.
Josh Hart, another guy like
Josh,
that.
100%, not gonna take it. Rob, quiet, but not the guy you want to try. And that was what sucked about seeing Josh go, and that's what sucked about, you know, Malcolm being a short timer and Rob getting injured. Like, JG, cool as a cucumber. Tease, ornery, but he's not, you know, kind of that guy. DA, straight line. Ant, straight line. Scoot's got energy, and he plays tough, but to your point, he's 19 and not at the Shea.
Still young,
straight. Like, you just kind of go up and down the roster, and you're like, who's that guy?
Well, I mean,
I'm wondering about Donovan too.
Well, I mean, I've already gotten that sense from Donovan, and again, the other guy too, Tumani, though. You got Tumani, because Tumani is like, he's kind of the exact right level of that you want, and because he's tough, he's not going to back down, he plays physical, but it's not dirty, and you know, like it comes across it doesn't come across as like.
I'll use an exact phrase from an all-star guard in the East not named Damian Lillard. After they got done playing, I talked to him and I asked him about two. And his response was, that's a mother there.
Yeah.
And this was very early in the season. And you could just tell. And to your point, two's 23. So he's not a 19-year-old. He's a little bit older. He's a little wiser. He understands.
Been on his own for a while too. Like, it's just a different.
Yeah.
It just makes you got to carry yourself a different way, I guess, when you're like that. Particularly, and when you're European and you know that guys are going to try you every single time because there's these notions about the kind of player you are. Which
is funny because a lot of those guys coming over now have more edge than a lot of the American-born players.
It's kind of switched up a bit.
If you ask me, do I want one of the Balkan native, like 25-year-olds or one of the AAU American 25-year-olds, I know who I'm going with, and it's not the AAU kids. Just, there's been a shift in the dynamic is all I'll say. Like I said, media day is a week away. Next day, we get right into training camp, and then we are, 2.5 weeks away from Seattle?
Yeah.
11th, right?
Yeah, so I think October the 5th is
the
FanFest.
FanFest, yep.
And then that next
6
Friday
days later we'll be up in Seattle.
Is Seattle, yeah, and then day off, and then Sacramento. So yeah, I mean
The season is here, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's good right now because we'll have plenty of stuff to talk about as we get to Media Day and then training camp. Casey will obviously be at Media Day doing his job as the Trailblazers beat reporter. I'll be there covering things for 1080 and Jack Ramsays. And I will effort as many days as I can at training camp without my co-host killing me on the radio because it will be running alongside my radio show. But I will be there, which if it was in Santa Barbara, my days would be 0. So I too am grateful that it is here so I can attend as many as I possibly can. Case, thank you for stepping in for the first Brandon Sprague
Thank you for having me, man.
This is fun.
Just so everyone knows, I've been asking to come on for a while, and every time it's like, well, yeah, we'll figure it out. And
I don't want to burn up your appearances because you know me. I hate asking people who already do. Like, you have 2 other podcasts.
That's true. I was gonna say I almost like I should move different backgrounds because like you're gonna watch a video with me in this exact same seat, and hopefully you're gonna watch it at least.
Yeah,
and
watch it.
Like I need to diversify a little bit. So.
Thank you for hopping on, man. I appreciate you. Maybe we'll circle back after training camp or after Seattle and kind of see where things sit. Because I think Seattle is going to be a really interesting spot because between Seattle and Sacramento, I think we're going to have very, very, very quick resolutions on early rotations.
Yeah.
And crossing myself, doing all of the things, whatever you believe in, as long as everybody is healthy, there's going to be some very interesting choices as it pertains to the rotation this year.
Absolutely.
Because decisions have to be made on guys. And I should say this, I shouldn't bring this up because it'll lead to another quick discussion, but with Sergey taking over his head coaching duties of the G League of the Rip City Remix, I'm also going to be really interested to see how many and who gets sent down to the Remix early to kind of take part in the experiment that is going to happen down there. And I guess that's a nice little tease for the preview series that I'm going to put out. First of all, I'm just about done with the Shade and Sharp season preview. The video season previews are going to return with some breakdowns on individual players leading into the season and leading into Media Day. And one of the other ones I'm doing is on the Rip City Remix. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what kind of happens down there with Sergey taking over as the head coach and working as assistant GM and kind of things that the organization wants to do that I have an understanding of now. So, Casey, thanks again for joining us. You can find Case on the Blazers Balcony, on the Briefcase, wherever you get your podcasts. Go listen to them, like, rate, review, subscribe, do all of the things for him as well. Across social media at Chold. Your IG handle Chold too, isn't it?
No, it's Casey Holdahl.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Chold was that was a throwback to when your username was actually part of the 120 characters you were allowed.
Oh, that's right.
So I kept it short. And so on IG, I just let it go longer. So.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's okay. I have a squatter on my IG handle. So
congrats.
Been there for years. And I'm like, why do we have this?
Yeah, there was someone that would fake my Twitter account every now and then, and like it would happen like once a year, and I'd have people like being like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" I'd be like, "I haven't tweeted anything in like 4 days. What do you?" And they'd be like, "Oh, that's someone who just took my photo." But
yeah, look close.
That's an I, not an L, in hold. So.
You can find me at Danny Marang across all social media, except for IG, where it's at DMarang. And then obviously every day on Danny and Dusty, noon to 3 with my co-host, Dusty Hara. Thank you, Casey, for taking some time. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you. Like I said, if you want to read more about the Blazers TV deal and the immediacy, it's up for free and unlocked on the Jack Ramsays Patreon, patreon.com/Jack Ramsays. I will also have the additional kind of history, how we got here, deep dive for all of the people who want to know about all of the in the weed stuff on the broadcast stuff as well. So again, thanks to Casey. Thank you all as well for being here. Like, review, subscribe, help us grow the show. You can email the show, jackramsays@gmail.com. Brandon's not here, but the email still works. Other than that, everybody have a wonderful, wonderful night. Take care. Talk soon, and see you very soon here on Jack Ramsays. Bye.